When a soul wants to enjoy this material world, forgetting his real home in the spiritual world, he takes this life of hard struggle for existence. This unnatural life of repeated birth, death, disease, and old age can be stopped when his consciousness is dovetailed with the supreme consciousness of God. That is the basic principle of Krishna's consciousness and the Krishna movement. As far as heart transplant is concerned, there is no question of success unless the soul is there in the heart. So the presence of the soul has to be accepted. In sexual intercourse, if there is no soul, there is no conception, no pregnancy. Contraception deteriorates the womb so that it no longer is a good place for the soul. That is against the order of God. By the order of God, a soul is sent to a particular womb. But by this contraceptive, he is denied that womb and has to be placed in another. That is the disobedience to the Supreme. For example, take a man who is supposed to live in a particular apartment. If the situation there is so disturbed that he cannot enter the apartment, then he is put at a great disadvantage. That is illegal interference and is punishable. The understanding of soul research would certainly mark the advancement of science, but advancement of science will not be able to find the soul. The soul's presence can simply be accepted on circumstantial understanding. You will find in the Vedic literature that the dimension of the soul is 1/10,000th the size of a point. The material scientist cannot measure the length and breadth of a point. Therefore, it is not possible for the material scientist to capture the soul. You can simply accept the soul's existence by taking it from authority. What the greatest scientists are finding, we've explained long ago. As soon as one understands the existence of the soul, he can immediately understand the existence of God. The difference between God and the soul is that God is a very great soul, and the living entity is a very small soul. But qualitatively, they are equal. Therefore, God is all-pervading, and the living entity is localized, but the nature and quality are the same. The central question, you say, is where is the soul and where does it come from? That is not difficult to understand. We have already discussed that the soul is residing in the heart of the living entity, and that it takes shelter in another body after death. Originally, the soul comes from God, just as a spark comes from fire. And when the spark falls down, it appears to be extinguished. The spark of soul originally comes from the spiritual world to the material world. In the material world, he falls down into 3 different conditions, which are called the modes of nature. When a spark of fire falls on dry grass, the fiery quality continues. When the spark falls on the ground, it cannot display its fiery manifestation unless the ground is favorably situated. And when the spark falls on water, it becomes extinguished. As such, we find 3 kinds of living conditions. One living entity is completely forgetful of his spiritual nature. Another is almost forgetful but still has an instinct of spiritual nature. And another is completely in search of spiritual perfection. There is a bona fide method for the attainment of spiritual perfection by the spiritual spark of soul. And if he is properly guided, then he is very easily sent back home, back to Godhead, wherefrom he originally fell. It will be a great contribution to human society if this authorized information from the Vedic literature is presented to the modern world on the basis of modern scientific understanding. The fact is already there. It simply has to be presented for modern understanding. Yours sincerely, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami. Haribol.